Hi everybody, I wanted to do a video on basically my research on when I buy a stock or an ETF or a mutual fund or any type of investment thing that I do. There's really no limit to what you can do. And again, these are just my opinions on things that I do specifically. You can use them or you can trash it. But basically, there's a couple things that I do before I actually invest into something. Now, the first thing that I do, since I have an iPhone, I have a list of all kinds of stocks on my phone, and I'm watching them. Some of them I don't own, but basically, what I do is I definitely look at the history of a stock. The best thing that pretty much any beginning investor or a regular investor wants to look at is the climb. So, if I'm seeing a stock that I like, and it's affordable, that's pretty big too. As long as it's affordable and the climb is very steady, then I usually get into it, and especially if I like it. I'm not into stocks that you see the climb and then you see a dip and then you see a climb and then a dip and so on. The repeating factor like that. To me, even though it still might be valued high, and even though there still might be some good things to it, I want to know, why is there so many dips? Why is there so much pullback? Why are so many people selling their stock and then getting right back in? Those are little things that I don't like. So I'm always looking at the longevity of a stock and just the gradual incline. Now, with the market in itself, there is pullbacks that happen. COVID, wars, trade deals, stimulus. There's all kinds of things that do happen in normal society in the US that can cause a pullback. That across the whole entire market, you'll see the dips and everything. Now, if a stock that I'm into rides that same wave, then I'm okay with it. But if there's some random things that are happening and there's like a lot of pullback and a lot of shaky water, I don't get into it. Also, another thing that I look at is, does a specific stock, let's just again stick to just one stock, does it pay a dividend? So if I'm getting into a stock, am I getting money back? So besides the earnings that I'm getting from a stock, am I actually getting paid back? It could be monthly, quarterly. It could also just be just once a year. So am I getting a certain percentage? Now, yes, I want to get a high percentage on my dividend, but not all stocks are going to pay you a high percentage. And also the ones that pay you a high percentage, they might be kind of expensive. So am I at least getting something back? And your dividend increases as the shares that you put into, or the shares that you buy into the stock. So am I getting a dividend back? Also, it's kind of funny, but I read a lot of message boards. I do a lot of with Yahoo, so I like to read the Yahoo Finance boards. A lot of people are just like, dude, stay away from these boards. These people don't know what they're talking about, and there's a lot of just like false information. That is true. There's a lot of people that are trying to scam you and everything, but there are a lot of people in these message boards that are overseas, so they see what the overseas market is, and they will buy and sell depending on what the globe is doing, depending on what materials are doing, depending on what utilities are doing. So I do track certain stocks, at least that I own, or I'm looking to own, and I see what people are doing. I see like what people, maybe in a different time zone, what information they already know that can benefit me to buy a stock at the right time. So I would probably say to not use that advice to buy a stock, but it does benefit me, and it has worked to my advantage sometimes. So to go into that is basically to get the right information, to know the news. So sometimes with the feeds or the certain news is, when's the right time to get into the stock. Now, there are obviously a lot of different scenarios. For me, I want to make sure that my price point is correct, whether I'm getting just a couple shares or I'm getting like 100 shares. I want to make sure that, one, I can afford it, and two, that the longevity is going to look good. So ideally, I want to get into a stock that is a pretty low price point, but there are some, stocks that are pretty heavy and high. So like Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Amazon. For just an example, those are really high shares. So like, for instance, with Amazon, I don't know offhand what their share price is, but I think it's over like $2,000 a share. I could be way off, but I think it's actually over that. So just one share of Amazon, you're going to have to spend that much money, but your return could be big. So like with Apple, I keep preaching Apple. There's a lot of things that are going good with Apple. So yeah, their price right now is in the 130 range. But really their bottom level is in that 118 to like 122-ish, which unless there's some crazy thing that happens, I don't really see it dipping too far under that. I think that's that base level price. But their evaluation is really high. So if I didn't have Apple, which I already do, I would want to invest in it because I know that one, their longevity is continuing to be higher, and also they pay a dividend, and their news is really good. So they have really good news, and I just see the stock continuing to rise. Also, another thing that I look at is, has a stock had a split? So I might do a video on this specific thing later on, but basically what a split is, there's two ways. A stock can split, so one share can be 2 shares, or one share could be 6 shares, or there's a reverse split where usually with like penny stocks that are going public or actually going in that aren't over the counter trades, but basically like really small shares that they're trading like 20 million shares a day. A reverse split is taking all those. So you might have like 10,000 shares and a reverse split is shrinking it. So it might bump up the share price a little bit, but you still keep the same value or the same valuation into your portfolio with just a smaller quantity. So I want to know basically, is a stock coming up for a split? Meaning that I want to get into something usually at like a high price point. So like Tesla, for instance, they're a high price point. Down the road, there are rumors and there can be some things that could affect it to where that stock splits. So your one share becomes 2 shares, but at a lower price. Your portfolio stays the same, your valuation stays the same, but the reason it splits is to get people to buy in it at a lower price, which continues to rise the stock. Again, with the reverse split, it basically, they're super, super cheap penny stocks, and basically they condense it because also it prevents a lot of the short sells and the volatility. So I'm not really worried about the reverse split unless a business is really, really good that I get into. But I want to know that if I get into something like Apple, again, just recently, a couple months back, they did a split. So where their evaluation was really, really high, and to get more people back into it because they had a high share price at the time, is they split. So if you had, say, 1,000 shares, I think they did a 1-for-4 split. I could be wrong, but basically one of your shares, if that was the case, turned into 4 shares. So basically it brought the stock price down a little bit, but the overall picture is it didn't bring the valuation of the company down. It just brought the stock price down so people like myself or other people can reinvest into Apple and to buy more in. So the capital keeps climbing, the price point keeps climbing. So those are little things that basically I look at into a stock. There's all kinds of other things. Commission comes into play, capital gains comes into play. Another thing real quick is I do like to know what my stock sector is. So is the stock that I'm getting, or is the ETF that I'm getting into, is it in the tech sector? Is it in the utility sector? Is it in travel? I want to know basically, because of COVID, there's really not one sector that hasn't been affected, but what is like recession proof? What is COVID proof? What is just market absolute catastrophe proof? So I like to know what the sectors are and then what kind of business they do. So again, we'll take Microsoft, for instance. Microsoft is kind of like Apple to where they are a tech sector. So they work with computers, they work with handhelds, they work with tablets now. They also work with just all kinds of different things. Microsoft deals with Xbox. Sorry, I didn't know what I wanted to say. So there's all kinds of little things. So what does that one little company, they're not a little company, but what does that company do? What is their spiderweb effect? If it's a big spiderweb effect, then I probably want to get into it. So that's a little spiel on what I like to do when I get into a stock, and hope to keep making these, keep liking these videos, keep passing the word around